自己选的角色，没有这么怎么能只会2米8，至少2米8的男主？导演还不够满意，要拍出3米8的气场，只有2米8还不够。
That day, the air on the set of Fated Hearts was warm and full of passion. We were preparing to shoot one of the most emotional scenes in the play. The one where Li Qin's character Ru Yi falls unconscious in the arms of Chen Zhe Yuan's character Feng Yuan after a huge argument that separates them. I've been on site since morning, making sure everything goes according to plan. Soft lighting, artificial fog to amplify the atmosphere, and cameras ready to capture every little expression. But who would have thought the scene of that day would turn into an unforgettable moment? Not because of the script, but because of the spontaneity and genuine care between our two leads. As an assistant director, my job is to pay attention to small details. And one thing that always caught my attention during the production of Fated Hearts was the working relationship between Chen Zhe Yuan and Li Qin. They have natural chemistry, not artificial. When the camera shoots, they become two characters caught in love and destiny. When the camera stops, they become two people who understand each other and flirt with each other in a way that makes all the crew smile. Zhe Yuan is the type of actor who is dedicated, serious, and very protective of his co-stars. While Li Qin, although known for being elegant and gentle, had a no less keen sense of humor. That combination creates a warm atmosphere every time they are in one frame. A few minutes later, the atmosphere on the set became quiet. The lights were on, the camera was ready to shoot, and the director signaled in a stern voice, "Action!" The scene begins. Zhe Yuan performed amazingly, with such vivid emotions. He looked at Li Qin with teary eyes as he uttered a soulful dialogue. "Ru Yi, I never meant to hurt you. Please, don't leave me like this." Li Qin played his role very convincingly. He turned his face, held back the tears, and said his last sentence in a weak voice. "Feng Yuan, love sometimes comes too late." And right after that, according to the script, Ru Yi had to fall unconscious in Feng Yuan's arms. However, what wasn't in the script was, Li Qin dropped himself faster than he should have, without giving any sign. His body drooped completely like losing consciousness. Zhe Yuan, who was completely unprepared, was instantly shocked. Reflexively, he caught Li Qin's body from hitting the floor. But as soon as his body was in an embrace, Zhe Yuan felt something that made him panic. Li Qin was completely silent, his eyes closed tightly, his breathing barely audible. "Li Qin!" His exclamation was spontaneous. Her voice is hoarse, frantic, and definitely not part of the acting. I held my breath, between wanting to laugh and worrying at once. But before I had time to react, Zhe Yuan was already kneeling while holding Li Qin's head. "Hey, wake up. You heard me, right?" he said softly, his tone full of real anxiety. The director, who was still staring at the monitor, said, "Wow, the acting is amazing." But I hurriedly cut in, "Sir, it looks like he's really freaking out." Zhe Yuan hugged Li Qin's shoulder tightly. His face was unusually anxious. "Qina, don't joke around. You okay?" Again, this time with a plea. He even patted Li Qin's cheek softly, as if trying to wake her up. The crew around us began to look at each other. Some began to laugh softly, but there were also those who were still not sure that this was a joke. I, who knew Li Qin's little secret, could only bite my lip to hold back laughter. "Call the medical team." Zhe Yuan shouted in panic. "He's really gone." I said, "What?" He was exhausted today. We all couldn't hold back the laughter any longer. One of the crew was already half running to fetch water, but before it arrived, Li Qin slowly opened his eyes. He looked at Zhe Yuan's still worried face and said in a small voice, "It's sweet of you to panic." The atmosphere on the set instantly exploded. Everyone laughed loudly, even the director, to the point of patting the table saying, "Geez, Li Qin, you almost made Chen completely shock." Zhe Yuan's face turned red. He looked at Li Qin in disbelief. "Are you kidding me?" he said in a half-relieved, half-annoyed tone. Li Qin chuckled a little. "I just wanted to see how you would react if I passed out for real. It turns out that you are more worried than Feng Yuan's own character." Zhe Yuan let out a long sigh, covering his face with his hands. I really think you're all right, he said quietly. You know, my heart almost stopped. Li Qin looked at him with a gentle smile. Then you care, he replied casually. Instantly, the set became even more boisterous. Some of the crew began to tease. Wow, Zhe Yuan is really such a frantic girlfriend, NH. Zhe Yuan only smiled shyly, then said, You have no idea how scared I was just now. Next time, don't be such a prankster, yeah? Li Qin nodded with a small smile. All right, I promise. But your panic reaction is priceless, you know. After the incident, the working atmosphere at the site became warmer than before. Their chemistry in front of the camera feels more and more natural. Softer, deeper. Even when they clashed dialogues in serious scenes, there was an aura of familiarity that was difficult to explain. Some of the crew often teased Zhe Yuan whenever Li Qin looked tired. Be careful, he'll pretend to faint again, said one of the cameramen with a laugh. Zhe Yuan usually just shook his head while smiling. If he really fainted, I wouldn't believe it until he laughed first, she said lightly. But his gaze was always gentle whenever he mentioned Li Qin's name. Interestingly, after the incident, Zhe Yuan became more attentive. He always made sure Li Qin ate lunch on time, prepared water for her, and even sometimes brought a blanket during breaks. Just in case, who knows you faint again, he said each time. Li Qin just laughed and replied, If that's how you keep watching me, maybe I'll pretend again. Whenever he heard that, Zhe Yuan just looked at him with a smile that was hard to hide. There was something in that look, a mixture of warmth, admiration, and unspoken affection. I, who watched it all from behind the scenes, could only smile every time they interacted. Small moments that were originally just jokes turned into sweet memories that showed the original side of both. From that day on, all the crew agreed on one thing. Their chemistry was not just the result of rehearsals or directorial direction, it was real. Even the camera seems to know, and captures every little vibration between them. And for me personally, the moment Li Qin pretended to faint was one of the most beautiful events I've ever seen in the world of film production. Not because of the drama, but because of the honesty in it. As Zhe Yuan panicked, there was no script, no acting. All there was a man's genuine concern for someone he cared about. Perhaps involuntarily, the day becomes that little point where the line between acting and real feelings begins to blur. And every time they went on a romantic scene after that, everyone on the set could feel something different. It wasn't just the love between Feng Yuan and Ru Yi, but also between two hearts that, whether consciously or unconsciously, began to beat in the same rhythm.